Welcome to today's episode of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. I'm honored you're here because this is a conversation I believe every birthing mama deserves to have. One centered on you, your body, your voice, your choices. Whether this is your first baby or your fifth, your desires matter. Your birth matters. Today, we're going to talk about your birth, your way, and how understanding and communicating your desires and preferences shapes your experience. Hi, I'm Debra Pascali-Bonaro, host and director of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. In today's episode, we're diving into something vital, and that's why your birth preferences matter and how understanding your choices and clearly communicating them with your care team can help ensure a birth that's not only safe, but also respectful, connected, and yes, pleasurable. Birth is one of the most profound, transformative experiences of our life. And how you're treated, how people make you feel, and how your desires are honored matter more than many people talk about. So today I'll be sharing reflective questions, communication tips, and supportive guidance to help you clarify what you want and feel empowered to ask for it. And before we dive in, I want to invite you to create your own free, printable, fully customizable birth preferences at orgasmicbirth.com/birth plan. That's orgasmicbirth.com/birth plan, or see the link below in the show notes. It's a powerful tool to take into your next appointment and bring your desires into the discussion and make sure they're honored and heard. So let's begin by coming home to your body. Let's take a deep breath. I know life gets busy. You might be listening to this podcast on the fly. Just take a deep breath to kind of settle your system in through your nose, out through your mouth, and ask yourself, how are you feeling about your upcoming birth? There's no right answer. Just tune in. Are you feeling excited, nervous, curious, overwhelmed, joyful? All of it is okay. Now ask yourself, what are 3 most important things to you about this birth? And I hope when the time is right, you can actually write the answers to those questions down. So what's the 3 most important things to you about this birth? For some, it might be avoiding unnecessary interventions. For others, it might be having your partner catch the baby, playing special music, or simply being treated with dignity and respect. And for others, it might be, I hope if you're listening to us, it's one of them is having an orgasmic birth, defined by you writing your own definition of what does that mean to you. And in addition, what are your fears? Naming them isn't weakness, it's strength. When we name our fears, we take them out of the shadows and bring them into the light where they can be seen, softened, met with information, love, or boundaries. So these are questions that you need to ask where your birth preferences or plan begins. It's not just a checklist, but a reflection of what you value most. So you need to know your partner's paradigm next. After you've checked in with what's most important to you, let's talk about something that most people overlook. How aligned is your provider with the kind of birth you desire? Your provider's paradigm, their typical practices, their values, their comfort zone tells you a lot about the odds of you having the birth you want. If you're planning an unmedicated, upright water birth, but your provider has very low rates of those, That's worth exploring. So many people just go to the provider that's closest, assuming that they're all the same, and they're not. I live in New Jersey, and I can tell you that in a 30-minute radius of me, there are home birth midwives, there are 2 different birth centers with midwives and a backup physician, there are hospitals with midwives and physicians, and there are hospitals that only have physicians. Each of those locations and each of those providers practice differently. Your odds of having a cesarean greatly vary depending on which location and which provider you choose. So you need to really stop and find out a little bit about your provider and their practice. So here are some questions for you to ask them, or at least if there's an office manager, call ahead, ask for some extra time before your next appointment, and let the office manager know that maybe they can answer some of these general questions, or maybe your provider has an extra 5 or 10 minutes to share this. So what are their rates of vaginal birth? How often do your clients have unmedicated physiologic births? What percentage of the births in your care use an epidural? Do you offer nitrous oxide, and how commonly is it used? And if you don't know about nitrous, stay tuned. We'll be talking more about it, but that's laughing gas. It's commonly used in many parts of the world, and it's just making a comeback now in the United States. So you definitely want to find out if your provider uses it or not. What is your provider's cesarean birth rate? What's your cesarean birth rate? How many of your births are doula supported? What positions and comfort measures do you encourage during labor? Do you even support or encourage upright or active birthing positions? What is your rate of water birth or use of any water like showers during labor? Do you support delayed cord clamping and cutting? Do you support the first hour of skin-to-skin undisturbed contact? Knowing I would like a pleasurable orgasmic birth, what suggestions do you have to support me? Those are just a few of the questions that I really encourage you to consider, and certainly to modify them and add your own. Knowing these stats give you context. It tells you what's routine and what might require more advocacy. If something you value is uncommon in their care, ask what support they can offer to help make it more accessible to you. This is your body, your baby, your birth. You have every right to ask. Their answers will help you decide whether your vision for birth is supported in their practice environment. If you don't hear the answers you want, you have 2 options. 1, seek another opinion. If you're early enough in your pregnancy to explore other caregivers, you would be surprised possibly to know that someone not far away may have completely different answers and a different practice. If you're further along when you find this out and you're not able to change providers, better to know before the birth what your options are. Birth trauma often happens when people expect one thing and then learn in labor that those options aren't available to them. So if you learn what your provider's practice is like, then you can better set your expectations and find ways to make any birth experience a positive birth. Are you curious about enhancing pleasure and easing discomfort in labor? Orgasmic Birth and Dame present the Pleasure Vibe Fin, a waterproof vibrator designed to empower your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Boost your oxytocin, ease discomfort naturally, and transform your birth into an empowered and even orgasmic experience. Plus, support postpartum healing and reconnect with your body. Are you ready to embrace the power of pleasure? Click below, learn more, and start your transformation today. So, really important for you to know that there's huge variation. And, I often, when I'm teaching doulas, talk about that we have a lot of science and evidence that supports more physiologic births with movement and upright births and doulas and midwives and doing all the kind of comfort measures that we often taught and teach in orgasmic birth. But we know there's a huge gap between what we know in science and what current practice is. And so sadly for you as a consumer, you have to navigate that practice policy gap. So I encourage you, if you're listening to this when you're just considering being pregnant, or maybe you're early in pregnancy, this is the time to do your research and homework. Again, if you're later in pregnancy, it's never too late to start, because at least knowing what to expect is going to help you have a more positive experience. So now let's go deeper beyond interventions and creating some holistic birth preferences. Birth plans, or I like to call them birth preferences, wishes, desires, dreams, something that's fluid, recognizing that you get to choose 50%, but as I've said before, your baby chooses the other 50%. So being flexible, that we never know what birth will ask of you, what your baby will need for safety, creating something that's fluid is always helpful. But it's also, while it's important to know in our birth preferences, if you want intermittent monitoring or delayed cord clamping and many of the things I just said, but you are not a checklist. Your preference should also reflect your values, your emotions, your needs, your spirit. So I invite you to consider, would you like to include any spiritual elements, such as prayers, rituals, or affirmations? Do you want to discuss with your caregiver privacy or feeling unobserved? We talk about in our hormonal podcast with Dr. Sarah Buckley that feeling safe, private, and unobserved are key to supporting the release of oxytocin, the hormone that fuels labor and love. Do you need a list of oxytocin enhancers? And I would say yes, 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 at least 10 things. And you need to create an environment that you feel safe, calm, and connected. So this might include your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel. So different aromatherapy, music, massage, kissing, warmth, loving words, or even self-pleasure. So having this list of oxytocin enhancers, can you feel safe to discuss that with your care team? Have you thought about birth as a part of your sexuality? Would you like time with intimacy with your partner, or space for movement, self-touch, or self-pleasure? Do you feel comfortable talking with your midwife or doctor about the ways you want to include or protect your sexuality? There's no shame in this. Birth is physical, emotional, and yes, deeply sensual and sexual. And when we allow ourselves to honor that, we support the hormones of birth in any setting, at home, in a birth center, in a hospital, with or without interventions. So let your preferences include not just what you might want to avoid, but definitely what you want to invite in. And lastly, communication is your superpower. None of this works without communication. So take time to talk to your care team about how you'd like to be treated, the words you want to hear, what respectful care looks like to you. Can you ask for more time before a procedure is done? Can you say, no, not now? I want time to pray about it without feeling dismissed. Do you feel heard when you're asking questions at a prenatal visit? If the answer is no, you don't feel respectful in prenatal care, that's a big red flag. This is your baby, your body, your birth, and you're allowed to pause. You're allowed to ask for clarity. You're allowed to center yourself in every decision. One of the best things you can do is to bring your preferences on paper to a prenatal appointment. It opens the door, it starts a conversation, it sets expectations. So remember, call ahead. Your providers are busy. You want to honor and respect their time so they can respect you, and let them know you need an extra 5 to 10 minutes to talk about things at the end of each visit. And it helps everyone, you, your partner, your provider, to come together as a team with a shared vision of respect. And so I hope these questions today were helpful. I hope that you'll go and download our birth preferences at orgasmicbirth.com/birth plan, and start with your partner, start with your doula, places that you can start sharing and expanding. What is your vision for birth? What do you desire that honors the physical, emotional, spiritual, sensual, and sexual aspects of birth? I hope today gave you some inspiration and maybe some courage. Your birth is yours to shape, not in every detail. As I said, the baby has some too, but in energy, intention, and experience. Take time this week to sit with these questions, reflect, journal, talk with your provider, talk with your partner, and remember, you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be honored. You deserve a birth that reflects you, your power, your pleasure, and your love. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll share how sitting with these questions, writing them down, and having these discussions went. We always love to hear from you. Until next time, take care, trust your body, and keep connecting to your inner wisdom. You were made for this. Bye.